Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic the Hedgehog, An Unfortunate History. I'm Max.
I'm Andrew.
And together we are the foundation for the eradication of Gen 5 Pokemon, because fuck those guys. You can follow our socials here. We have a well, no, we don't have the Twitter anymore. I got rid of it. We have a blue... Yeah, thank God. Apparently, breaking news, Elon Musk was an illegal immigrant, so... I think we should start the deportations with him. I don't know.
I mean, he absolutely needs to be in front of Congress right now.
He needs to be in front of a lot of things. But I feel like if I keep that line of dialogue going, it will become illegal. Yeah, I was going to say that, but... Speaking, well, no. We messed up the segue. We'll get there. So, before we start this panel, I want to go over... what you guys know about Sonic the Hedgehog. So we're going to pull up an image, and if you think it's Sonic the Hedgehog, if you think it's a Sonic the Hedgehog character, I would like you to raise your hand. And if it is not a Sonic the Hedgehog character, I would not like you to raise your hand. Does that make sense? Cool, we're good. Okay, so since we kind of already started on Elon Musk, I would like to know, is Elon Musk a Sonic the Hedgehog character? If you think so, yes. If not, no. Max, you can't raise your hand because you know the answers to this fucking quiz.
All right, AV guy.
You're right. He is Dr. Eggman. Now, in previous iterations of this panel, we like to think that he kind of based himself off of Dr. Eggman. But at this point, given how many fucking chimps he's killed with the Neuralink, I think he is way worse for animals than the guy who literally captures birds and shoves them into fighting robots.
All right, next, is the Grinch a Sonic the Hedgehog character?
Are we taking that?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah,
it's Dr. Robotnik, the movie one.
Notably,
the same actors.
As we all know, Dr. Robotnik and Dr. Eggman, entirely different characters. Are you okay?
No, I'm seeing this again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, aren't we going to see you at SAC Anime? Sorry, at SnafuCon?
No, not that.
No, okay, I'm confusing you with someone else.
You're at the YumeCon though, right?
Yes. Everywhere, forever.
Yeah.
Is Toru from Jackie Chan Adventures a Sonic the Hedgehog character?
I haven't seen this show. I was 4 when this aired.
Is that going to stop me from referencing it?
It's a good show.
It is. And he is a Sonic the Hedgehog character, specifically Big the Cat.
Fair enough.
Not to be confused with my OC, Bigger the Catter, Do Not Steal. As you can tell, he's real cool. He's got the marks and the stripes and stuff.
Very edgy.
Very edgy. Next up is the Sailor Moon AMV for the Linkin Park song Crawling in My Skin, a Sonic the Hedgehog character.
I've seen the Shadow MFD version.
You're right, it's Shadow the Hedgehog!
I reject this reality, my day is ruined.
Goodbye, Adam Savage. It's funny how often people are like, it's Cream, right? I'm like, no, Cream wouldn't listen to Linkin Park.
She would.
No, Cream's too wholesome. She's listening to Katy Perry.
No, her mother is.
Her mother is the size of an average adult human female.
We're not referencing that.
Not reference that video.
She is the 7th hottest Sonic the Hedgehog female character.
He made me watch that, and I never get that time.
I'll look at his name.
Anyway, is Pacific Gas and Electric a Sonic the Hedgehog character? No.
No.
Blaze the Cat.
Yes,
Yes.
it's Blaze the Cat.
Good job.
What'd you lose in the fire?
I know too many people have to move.
Yeah. My parents lost a house. It was cool. I got a settlement out of it, so I don't know. That's nice.
I think they should be nationalized.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, but like, welcome to America, man.
No other state hates their power company except California.
Anyway, is that moment you realized you were sexually attracted to anthropomorphic animals a Sonic the Hedgehog
I
character?
think it goes earlier than Sonic at that point, don't it?
Maybe. Which character is it, though?
So then you want to tell us?
Huh? Yeah, that's Rouge the Bat.
Man, our audience is on point today.
My favorite instance of this was someone said, it depends on your preferences. And then when pressed, said Rouge the Bat.
They should have said Vector.
At a later con, we saw him with his partner, who was cosplaying Rouge the Bat.
Let's go.
And if you would like to ask them about it, they'll be hosting Anime Taboo today at 2:15. So now that we've established you two know way too much about Sonic, and the rest of you have not participated in the quiz. You're like, what's going on?
Our AV guy did. He did a good job.
Yeah. We're going to have to talk about the progenitus of Sonic the Hedgehog, the predecessor, if you will, the company that brought us this little blue fucking menace, and that is, of course, Sega. Now, Sega started their business plan by selling gambling machines to sailors at Japanese military bases. You seem pretty into that.
That is a foolproof plan.
Yeah.
It's a great plan until the U.S. military decides to ban gambling machines on naval bases. I know, haters. It's like Sega's showing up and like, hey, we got some loot boxes, and the U.S. government is like, we're actually going to regulate that. And I was like, oh, fuck. But Sega absolutely loved arcade games, gambling machines, and sailors. So they decided to just, combine all of those into their first, more available arcade port, which is Periscope. Now, in this game, you would put your face there so you could see through the periscope, much like a Virtual Boy. And then you would shoot down boats or like whatever, man. You're a sub-captain shooting down boats. It does. So Periscope was huge and expensive. So to play a game of Periscope would cost you 25 cents. And I know what you're saying, 25 cents. I thought that's how much most arcade games cost in the 80s. And that is true, but it's only true because of Periscope. Once Periscope came out and everyone realized that kids would pay a quarter instead of a nickel, that became the new standard. Talk about inflation. So with the success of Periscope, Sega decided they were going to commit to the bit and did what anyone else who was producing arcade machines in the early 80s did, which was make their own video game console for some goddamn reason. Because it made more sense to make a console to make your own games for than to just make games for another company's console. And here we have the SG-1000. You might not have heard of it. That's fine. It didn't do that great, but it didn't stop Sega from pursuing their dreams, as they OC do not steal the thing. As these are all the same goddamn thing. They even released a Sega Master System Girl. Before then, women weren't allowed to play video games. But Sega revolutionized the process.
Oh, the controller is the console.
Yeah.
Definitely makes things awkward.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, guys can play multiplayer games, but women, no. Play it alone in your room.
Does this count as the first plug and play?
What would be your definition of a plug and play?
Just like the controller, that's the system. You just have to plug down like
Not
we'll get
really.
to that later.
So we have an entire panel about the history of video game consoles that we're actually going to do between this and the Ash panel, where we do talk about, not plug and plays, but early video game consoles, all of them had pre-installed games, and that was the only thing you could play. So, no. But also some Sega Master Systems did have pre-installed games. Next up, sorry, back to what I was talking about. I immediately transitioned to console wars.
Yeah, we're not there.
So the Master System sold pretty well. It did great in Western Europe, Western Japan, and of course, Brazil. Now, Brazil accounted for 8 million of the 22 million Sega Master System sales, which, yeah, it's huge. But that is still a lot fewer consoles than Nintendo sold. That being said, Sega was able to make that up by the Master System having the highest attachment rate of any video game console. An attachment rate is the average number of games sold per console sold. For most consoles, it's between 8 and 10. For the Sega Master System, it was 22. Because you needed 22 games for this fucking thing to get the same enjoyment you would get from 8 for the NES.
But why was it so popular?
Why was it so popular in Brazil? Thanks for asking, Andrew. I need to be clear here. This isn't a joke. Sega of Japan outsourced the marketing of the Master System to Tonka. And now it becomes the joke. Tonka probably promised to demolish a full acre of rainforest for every system sold in Japan, in Brazil. And we all know Brazil and Tonga hate rainforests. So after the success of the Sega SG-1000, 1002, 1000 MK3, Master System, and Girl, Sega decided they'd just keep going, and we got the Genesis. I know, it's so excited. And they knew what they were doing because the Genesis pre-pack-in game on launch had one of the most recognizable characters of all time. and that is, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog.
I love Altered Beast.
Yeah, that's not Sonic, Max.
I'm more of a vector man.
But you,
Well, so this is
I
clearly.
mean, I do own Vector Man, but no.
Yeah, so this is clearly where Sega got started with their furry obsession.
Look, I played this when I was 5 at Nickel City. It was great.
So this was your sexual awakening.
No, I was 5.
I was gonna say, like, I'm sorry.
I mean, sure, it could.
I
be
don't either. I'm gonna stop it. I apologize. So, basically, yeah, Sega didn't really know what they were doing. The Genesis was being marketed as direct competition for the NES. The Super Nintendo hadn't come out yet. So the NES is $100, and it comes with Mario Bros. 3 and Duck Hunt, 2 super recognizable games. The Genesis, while better, is $200 and comes with whatever the fuck this is. You love this, that's fair, but like if you were a parent buying a video game console for your kid, are you gonna go, yeah, this seems appropriate?
My dad worked at Atari. We're different.
Yeah.
Was he
knew what
Ralph
was
H.
doing.
Fair?
No, he worked there
Damn.
for 6 months and got fired.
So basically, Sega needed help to actually sell the goddamn product because they were trying their damnedest to fail. So they got Tom Kalansky, who really likes Sonic, apparently. This guy is the one who made Barbie dolls popular.
Oh.
Right? So when Barbies first came out, they were like the first dolls with boobs, which was super confusing to people. Like, you know how fucking weird parents are right now? Imagine in the 60s them reacting to the first doll with boobs. They were literally like pulling them apart, being like, are these anatomically correct everywhere? It's like, no, they're just dolls. And he was able to sell those to America. If anybody could sell Sega, it's this man. The first thing he did, slash the price of the Genesis from $200 to $150, package in that little blue thing, and just go to town.
But where did they come up with the idea for Sonic the Hedgehog? So we're going to talk about the birth and the conception of Sonic the Hedgehog, something we promised to never Google image search. Because their big competition was Nintendo. So Nintendo had a fantastic poster boy in Mario. Not that one. That one
No.
doesn't sound right. Yeah, there we go. So Mario is a poster boy. So you see Mario, you associate with the console, you associate with the games, you want to play that character, so you buy that console. Sega at the time had Alex the Kid, and he just was not cutting it. He can't cut a slice of bread, let alone the video game industry.
I desperately want to cosplay Alex the Kid, but no one would know what I was doing.
There'd be like one guy.
I would. That guy is made.
We have the
Yeah,
same
we're
name.
sorry.
That doesn't count.
I'm sorry to tell you that somehow, out of sheer absurdity, Billy Hatcher is more recognizable than Alex.
Well,
Exactly.
that's like Alpha Rad's fault.
So Sega knew that they had to come up with a new character. So they went the opposites approach. Mario's slow, so our character is going to have to be really fast. Mario uses 2 buttons, so our character can only use 1 button, because we all know nobody uses more than 1 button. That's why the paint only rubs off the W key. Mario's red, so Sonic has to be blue and have a crippling cookie addiction. Mario, very wholesome, so Sonic has to be edgy as shit. Mario hurts animals directly, so Sonic's got to hurt them in a much more roundabout way. Mario had a terrible movie.
No.
Terrible movie.
No.
And the Sonic movie was going to be so much worse before the internet fixed it. Mario's classic, and Sonic's timeless the moment he came out.
Dated.
It did. But yes, so the original character design for Sonic was they just took Mickey Mouse and slapped on Felix the Cat's head. I mean, that's not really making a huge difference, but that was their idea. And they had great ideas like naming him Mr. Needlemouse and giving him a human girlfriend, something that we're really glad they never pursued further. But why a hedgehog for their flagship character? I guess they're kind of pointy, cool, cute, sure, whatever. But some of these other choices, like Tails is fine. Everyone loves foxes until they bark at you. And if you've heard that, you know it's terrifying. I didn't know an echidna was a real animal till I started researching this panel.
Wait, echidnas are real?
Apparently.
Fuck.
But then
Do not look up echidna anatomy.
they just started raiding the zoo. We got a crocodile, an armadillo, a bat, a hawk, a rabbit, and whatever the fuck chow are.
Another hedgehog, even.
Yeah. So
2 other.
they just went for the zoo approach of just, yeah, we're just gonna throw every animal and there's only ever gonna be one. All right, but we have to go talk about the actual classic Sonic games because I assume that's why some of you are in this audience. All the way back, Sonic started out as a platformer. At the time, platformers were very different because they were about precision jumping and problem solving. Whereas Sonic went for a different approach where it was you were moving fast, so you couldn't do precision jumps very well. And your problem solving was instead of the classic, like, oh, I see the issue, I'm going to solve this, it's you, by going fast, you end up on the lower paths, which are longer and slower, and you die more. But when you die, you reset and can eventually make it up to the top paths, which are faster. So you get better through repetition. And it gave a very interesting sense of speed because the only thing that did like speed at the time was like racing games. So it was kind of unique. Though the plot, not really anything to write home about. Very classic, like, you know, bad guy takes cute animals, shoves them into a robot, and magic stones save the day. So pretty standard. Sonic 2 didn't reinvent the formula, just more of the same. Added second playable character in Ninetales, and a spin dash so you could attack things without stopping.
Magic Stone saved the day.
But pretty much everything else was the same. It sold 6 million units, which was second only to the first Sonic. And I'm not kidding, they named him Tails in America because for some reason we're sensitive about miles per hour, which is a miles per hour joke. We're the only one who use miles per hour. We're the only ones who get that joke. Why we're sensitive about that?
And we're very insecure about the fact that it is objectively worse than kilometers.
Yeah. Anyways, on to Sonic 3. Somehow released in America before it came out in Japan.
We did it!
And it was designed as one game, but in 2 parts. And the soundtrack was going to be made with a certain famous musician. Just the famous musician turned out to be a little problematic. Not that one.
Ugh.
Not that one. No. That's alleged. Too recent. Yeah, that one.
What sucks is there are more we have to put in since we updated this. It keeps happening.
So, so Michael Jackson was actually helping with the music on Sonic 3, but deep into production, accusations started to come out, so they removed all of his music from the game, by which I mean they just removed his name and said, OC, do not steal. They're very good at that. But Sonic 3 was actually where they started to expand on the gameplay formula, so larger levels, adding a story. Fun enough, it started development as a 3D game, but this got cut and became Sonic 3D Blast, which was not a blast. But with the 3D getting cut, they knew they needed to stick to what they knew, so they made another 2D side-scroller, which was cut again because they ran out of time. First half became Sonic 3, second half became a Knuckles. It introduced Knuckles, who could show us the way.
Which was my first Sonic game.
And to allow for this game, they gave us a lock-on adapter.
Thank you.
Because they felt Game Genie was just getting too much of that market. And it was built to be backwards compatible with older Sonic games. You could plug in Sonic 3. Instead of just having Sonic and Tails, it added Knuckles to the roster. But during development, someone asked, like, hey, what happens if someone plugs a non-Sonic game into this? Well, we've got to replace a character with Knuckles. So, Toe Jam and Earl? No, Toe Jam and Knuckles. Earthworm Jim becomes Earthworm Knuckles. They made it work with every Genesis game, even VR chat. So, if you have a popular character in the 90s, Max, in the 80s, what do you do with it to make as much money as possible?
Cocaine.
Close. Breakfast cereals. But,
kid cocaine.
Yeah. And aside from breakfast cereals, cartoons. They put them in other media. So, the first one being The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. We're pretty sure this was the CIA experimenting with LSD, and boy, did they need to turn down that dosage, because this show was weird. Like, it was just one big acid trip, wild and nonsensical backgrounds to storylines that made no sense. I mean, just look at this. It's the strangest.
Was he in the syrup factory?
I don't even know.
Tails destroys the state of Vermont.
And some of these plots were like, Sonic gets attracted to a robot, or Eggman joins the German Air Corps just in time for World War I.
To be fair, at this point, what has Sonic not wanted to fuck?
Yeah. And then they did that weird crossover with Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know, he got really into that. And they also picked the most interesting voice actor, which was Jaleel White. Because when I think my character's fast, cool, edgy, I'm going to think Steve Urkel and get that guy. Don't get me wrong, it worked, but it was not the association I was expecting. They did end every episode with an important PSA, important life lessons, like don't shove your head into a blender. Look at least one way when crossing the freeway, that kind of thing. And then finally the drugs were out of their system, and they gave us a show that actually had a plot. Eggman evil, Sonic good was the standard before, but this show came out and said, we're going to expand why Sonic's fighting and really put him in an interesting,
Wait.
like, tech dystopia.
I feel like, speaking of tech dystopia, is it just me or does the supporting cast look like characters out of Five Nights at Freddy's?
It kind of
I mean,
Right.
where do you think Five Nights at Freddy's got their ideas?
That's
Clearly
really
Sonic
sad.
fan art, yeah. No, the show came out first. And after it was very successful, it was ranked number 9 in all Saturday morning cartoon shows. And it was popular enough where once it ended, the comic book just picked up the setting and ran with it. This comic book actually it was the Archie guys, you know, the redhead who can't figure out women. They were the ones writing this comic. They went for over 20 years just using that world. It had constant updates, new characters, and they tried to work in like the video game plots now and then. But it actually had the world record for the longest franchise-based comic series for quite a while. It was after 290 issues, it ended because Archie got sued by one of their ex-writers.
I met him.
Yeah, I met him too. It was.
I met him.
So Ken Penders, what happened there was Ken Penders, he had written a bunch of like OC characters for the comic and a bunch of storylines that they had kind of dropped as they went on forward. And at a con, and he had moved away from the Archie company. At a con, someone asked him like, hey, do you have the legal right to ever continue those stories? Because I'd be interested. He's just like, I'll go figure that out. And so he contacted Archie, and they couldn't produce his original like legal like contract for when he worked with them. So he had legal rights to everything that he had designed. So they couldn't use any of his characters now. So that entire legal team got fired, and he got a bunch of the legal rights. So they had to try to like reset the comic. It just got really convoluted, so Sega dropped him and gave him the license to IDW now.
He was-
I don't
Yeah.
He still goes to cons. He was at Fan Expo last
blame
year.
him. Scary.
Yeah, and I met him.
Yeah.
I shook his hand.
Good for you.
All right, and then the third show,
The hand?
Yeah.
That's good.
Sonic Underground. They were back on the drugs because this was another weird one. They felt like doubling down the first time. It was Star Wars ripoff, but with music replacing the Force. Instead of twins separated at birth, it's triplets separated at birth. Instead of the Force, it's the power of hard rock. Yeah, this was terrible. If you never watch it, you're having a better time in your life.
That's like the best endorsement to watch it. Yeah,
You'll never get that time back.
I have signed autograph from Tommy Wiseau. You think I'm not going to watch that? Anyway, so with Sonic Mania sweeping the nation like a bad cold, what does that do for the Sega Genesis? Honestly, it was pretty good. If you look at the sales for the Sega Genesis, the first 2 years when it was packed in with Altered Beast, it didn't do very well. And then once they went, let's put Sonic in this fucking thing, it sold on par with the NES internationally. And by internationally, I mean everywhere but Japan. In Japan, nobody bought a Sega Genesis. Everyone bought a Super Nintendo. In fact, the Genesis sold fewer units than the TurboGrafx 16, a console that I'm sure none of you have ever heard of before. Shut up. That being said, even though it did get outsold by Nintendo, the Genesis had twice the attachment rate of the Super Nintendo. So again, they sold a lot of games. And with, pretty good market share, Sega decided, you know what we should do? We should squander our position. So they started releasing random shit to add on to the Genesis. The first thing they sold was the 32X. When you apply it to a Sega Genesis, it looks a little like this. So the point of the 32X was to convert the Genesis into a 32-bit video game console. The situation there was basically Sega was working on developing a 64-bit console, and in tandem with that was working on a 32-bit console that they would release as a stopgap between what was ultimately the Sega Saturn and the Sega Genesis. But deep into production, they realized by the time we'd finish the 32-bit console, the Saturn will only be a year or so away, so it would look really bad of us to just release a 32-bit console for a year in the market. So instead, they released a 32-bit add-on for the Genesis. In America, it released after the Sega Saturn had already come out in Japan. So while it sold pretty well on launch date, by the end of the month, they were $20 each in the clearance bin. Next, we have the Sega CD. When you apply it to a Genesis, it looks a bit like this. There was a weird fad in the early 90s where video games would have live action cutscenes. Don't ask. And the only way to really do that was to use optical discs instead of cartridges. So Sega decided to get on that, allowed weird games like Night Trap to be made for the console, along with some stuff that was a little more powerful than the Genesis could otherwise handle, along with allowing it to just play CDs. So, I mean, I think the 32X was a terrible idea. The CD at least made sense. Next is Sega VR. This was never officially released because when Tom Kalinske went to meet with the team and tested it out, he went, "This is hot garbage," and threw it in the garbage can because it gave him motion sickness. He's like, "This is a terrible idea. We should not do it." Huh? Yeah, that guy's overheating. Unfortunately, Gunpei Yokoi was just hanging out in the garbage can, caught it, and went, "Oh, the Virtual Boy, let's do it." I need to be clear. That is the company that made the Virtual Boy. Next up, unfortunately, a Japan-only release, the Sega Genesis karaoke add-on. But you want it, don't you?
I do.
So badly. It's so... Yeah, why didn't we get this? Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It's totally unnecessary. Well, why not? Then I think my favorite of the Sega Genesis things, this is a standalone product. It is the Sega Tetra Drive. It is a fully functioning computer with built-in Sega Genesis. At the time, it wasn't super uncommon for home computers to try to also be video game consoles in a way that, you know, now you have gaming computers and it's normal. Back then, it was kind of weird. So Sega's like, what if we just had a computer that was just also a Genesis? And we sell it for $1,100 in 1991 money. Right? But you think about that for a second. How much was a decent new computer in 91? Probably like 600 with like a screen and everything. And a Genesis was like 200. So like if you're paying 800 to 11, that's not too far out there. I mean, sure, that's $2,500 in today money, but
Which is just a normal game.
yeah, which is just a nice Alienware laptop. And this is what the Sega Genesis looks like when you just put all of that together. It's like a Sears Build-A-Home. Like, oh, this year we're going to mail order the patio and add it to the house. We know how it worked for Sears. We know how it's going to work for Sega. It does let you play Lego building bricks with electronics, though. Just don't turn it on because it'll do this. So... what happened?
The Saturn.
I thought Sega was doing well. We had Sonic Mania sweeping the nation. We had a console that sold real well, and it just burned up. Okay, so I don't know how familiar you are with the Sega Saturn, but it is probably the biggest failure of any video game console from a major company. First off, Sega had an option to work with Project Reality, the developers of the N64. But Sega of Japan didn't want to do it because they were too concerned with the Japanese market. So they wanted to work internally within Japan. Because Project Reality was an American-based company, they weren't on board. Next, they tried to sign a contract with Sony to make a console with them. The idea being that it would work out for Sega because they thought they'd be better at publishing games than Sony. And then they realized, actually, that seems like a terrible fucking idea. Maybe we should just make our own console and lock Sony out. Something that definitely happened. Sony has never made a video game console. Next, after they saw Sony's PlayStation, they realized that the Saturn was grotesquely underpowered. So they just added a second discrete CPU. They just duct taped that bitch in. They're like, yeah, this will work. The Sega Saturn was one of the hardest consoles to program for. The people who worked on it, they were like, yeah, 1 in 100 people can really program for this console. And for them, it's really rewarding. And I think by that rewarding meant they pulled out all their hair very quickly. It also used quadrilaterals instead of triangles, like everything else was doing, meaning it was almost impossible to directly port a game over to it. You would have to rebuild it from the ground up for the Saturn. Again, a console that no one knew how to program for. But don't worry, it wasn't just the hardware that was terrible. Don't forget about the marketing. So Sega showed up and decided to turn E3 into their very own private launch party. The Sega guy went up and went, "Hey everybody, look under your seats right now. No, there's not a Sega Saturn. We didn't make enough of them." But you can go to the stores and buy them, just not KB Toys. We didn't sell them any because we didn't make enough of them. So KB Toys decided to just boycott Sega products going forward, a policy that most other retailers have taken on since for other reasons. Another problem with doing a surprise launch of your console, the plan, to be clear, their plan for this was to sell enough consoles that they had greater market share over Sony. That doesn't work if you don't tell your publishers that that the console's coming out 6 months early. So this Sega Saturn launched with 6 games, and 6 months later it had this many new games. Wait, sorry. There we go. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to buy a console just to play PGA Tour Pebble Beach.
Sounds like the PS5.
Or the Wii U. Next up, we have the Sega Saturn controller, which...
That's a Walkman, Max. I put CDs in that to listen to music, right?
I'm going to be honest, I don't think most of the people here know what a CD is.
I do. It also looks like the funny thing from that funny game that if I say the name, you'll shoot me.
Yeah.
I thought it kind of like Star Trek.
It does, actually.
But
I think Star Trek Enterprise ship is the best thing I've heard for this.
Yeah, but it still doesn't look like a video game controller. See, at least the N64 controller was comfortable if you had 3 hands. I'm sorry.
I completely forgot that that's what the controller was.
I mean, in retrospect, as far as game controllers go, there are a lot worse things than the Saturn controller, but that just objectively looks bad. Next, they decided to have Ice Cube sell it, so I don't know, man. That's just... Honestly, it led to the first rapid, unscheduled disassembly of a video game console in the market, but only in America. In Japan, the Sega Saturn did really well because, A, it launched at a reasonable time and had a good game window, and B, their marketing gimmick was that this man would beat the shit out of you if you didn't buy one. Yeah. Do you want Segata Senshiro showing up at your house and you not having a Saturn?
Oh, they did make the interesting decision of never putting a Sonic game on it, so that did not
Honestly,
help.
imagine how much worse it would have done if it had a Sonic game.
I mean, it really couldn't have hurt it. Yeah, it got canceled.
Yeah, Sonic Extreme.
Yeah.
It did have Sonic Fighters.
Yeah, we used to have a slide making fun of Sonic Extreme, but I just couldn't find enough content about Extreme that it actually existed. And then we have the Dreamcast, Max. You want to say anything about the Dreamcast?
I unironically think the Dreamcast was a good console. It released for $200. Sega of Japan wanted it to also be a fully functioning Sega Saturn, which would have made it $400, which is a bad marketing decision. It sold 10 million units. It got crowded out by the PS2 because the PS2 was going to come out a year after its release and could play DVDs. So,
Yeah, it was fine.
Good console, but just no one believed in Sega at this point. You could. I have a Saturn. I have a keyboard. Let's play Phantasy Star Online.
All right.
I have 2 Saturns.
Crazy Taxi.
That brings us...
Yeah.
Irreparably
Yeah, and playing Crazy Taxi on a Sega Saturn, on a Sega Dreamcast is all I want.
Now we get modern Sonic with 3Ds. It started the Dreamcast era. And with their new generation, they wanted to make everything with fresh, new, edgy designs. And I quote that because this is what we got. Turned out great.
Sonic looks like he's going to eat my face. Yeah.
And they wanted to do inventive new gameplay experiences like fishing. Yes, because...
Wait.
That's what I want.
This is a Sonic game.
Yes.
Fishing is like the slowest fucking thing you can do.
Yes, not exactly understanding their target audience there. I heard they only put fishing in there because some dev had just mocked up a fishing rod in engine. I'm assuming he was just goofing off, and they're just like, no, we like that. Put it in.
Wait, there was Sega Bass Pro Fishing for the Dreamcast.
They wanted to compete with themselves.
I know, I have it.
They were ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
But they heard you wanted more out of your Sonic game, so we're also going to add a shooter section. Come on, guys. Come on, what are you doing?
Is Sonic
want
fast
Sonic.
enough to outrun a bullet?
In fairness, that pose goes hard.
We love games.
No one loves Gamma. And next we have the Sonic game that was most people's first Sonic game at this point, which is Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Now, I know a lot of people really like this game. It has an 89 on Metacritic. And to those of you, you're wrong. Please take off the rose-tinted glasses. The only good thing about... there are only two good things about Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Number one, City Escape goes hard. Number two, having your Chow fight is cool. Who has revisited Sonic to play a single Knuckles level? Besides them.
I played the Dreamcast version. I didn't play the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
But have you gone back to play a Knuckles level recently?
Pumpkin Hill every time.
Why?
It just for Halloween, or?
No, I like Knuckles.
Yeah, but you liked Altered Beast, so I have a lot of problems with your taste here.
Look, I could fly around. I also really like that you could fly around a monkey ball. You could fly around.
You had that cool hip hop soundtrack.
Rose.
No.
Okay.
Fucking with Knuckles, dude.
Anyways,
All fuckles with Knuckles.
we also got Knuckles in Sonic Heroes because Sega decided they had to put their OCs into everything. So, yeah. Rumored 15 was just going to be your dad and his two coworkers. I mean, at this point, it's more likely for a character to be in a Sonic game than to not be in a Sonic game. They didn't really expand on the formula. They just made you run slow because now you have two characters with you, even though you're Sonic. So no running fast. They don't want to give people what they want.
A nice brisk jogging speed.
Yeah.
After Heroes, Sonic Team really decided they needed to make a game that, spoke to the feelings of the current generation and really answer the age-old question, what would happen if you gave a hedgehog a gun? That's right, we got Shadow the Hedgehog, a game with 3 morality paths, good, bad, and IDGAF.
All right, and then we got Sonic 06.
Wait, no, don't put
Look,
that in there.
it'll be fine, Max. Nothing.
Fuck!
Yeah, so if you know anything about Sonic 06, it was terrible. You'd agree with me if you weren't clipping into the floor.
I didn't know how to play pool.
Sonic 06 was bad. I mean, so it had fantastic design decisions like the human girlfriend.
I mean, here's the annoying thing. So they got so close to making the human girlfriend thing okay. The first Sonic game released in 1991. Sonic 06 notably came out in 2006, meaning he's only 15 right now. That is not okay. Just wait 3 years, guys.
All right, and then next up we had Sonic Unleashed because it was better because the bar was that low. Because, Werehog. Did nobody in that team own a dictionary? Because werewolf, the wolf is the part that means wolf, not were. Because werehog means a hedgehog turning into a human. Right? Regardless, it's just nobody owned a dictionary or understood how that word, so they went with werehog, which made no sense.
I'll give them creative. I'll let hog pass.
Yeah.
I won't let were pass.
Yeah, but anyways, the daytime levels were actually great. Like, running fast, like, great sense of speed, branching paths with, like, one path being fast, one path being slower, so you had to figure out, like, which one. Like, honestly, what people wanted, but in 3D, and it was fantastic. And then, but you know what else people wanted? Slow beat-em-up missions that were over 50% of the game, and a single level could take you over an hour to beat. That's not what people want. No. Come on, Sega. What do you guys do? Also, stretchy arms? What part of being a wolf gives you stretchy arms?
What part of being a bat makes you buff? Like, I've seen Morbius. I don't know. Nothing makes sense anymore. Next, we have the Sonic Team's spinoff of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Sonic and the Black Knight. I don't even know what's going on at this point. Like, they're just throwing spaghetti at a wall to see what sticks.
Yeah, and some of that spaghetti, honestly, pretty good. Like, they had some good games come out. Then they had some bad games come out.
Are we really putting Secret Rings in the bad games pile?
Yes.
I'm really putting Sonic 4 in the good game.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Secret Rings had like a full Sonic shuffle in it.
I know.
Sonic 4 was just unoffensive. That's my least complaint about it.
Yeah. If good for Sonic just means inoffensive, then
I didn't like the music and stuff.
And then they just decided to also put him into like every party game they could imagine. Like, Sonic's is supposed to be faster than like anything, so they put him in a race car or on a floating board when he could supposed to be run fast. Also, him at the Olympics, like the 100-meter dash, that's not supposed to be an even fight. Sonic's supposed to clean more of his cloth.
no,
in that.
Luigi's got this. Honestly, the whole thing just wasn't going that great for Sonic, as public opinion of his games is just dropping like a rock. And if only it stayed that. Have you seen the fucking approval ratings for that man lately? It's disgusting. Anyway, at this point, a new Sonic game would come. Before a Sonic game would come out, my friend Tyler would be like, Max, this Sonic game's gonna be good, I swear, I promise. And then it comes out and he doesn't talk to me for 3 weeks and pretends we never had the conversation. At this point, Sonic Team, they knew it was struggling, so they decided that they would just take a chance and ask for help from a fan. And they somehow picked the right fan because we got Sonic Mania. The first game that Tyler talked to me after playing.
But, then after that resounding success, they decided to talk some other fans. And these weren't good fans because all they got out of them was Furry Generator. Because, yeah, we got Sonic Forces and that was like 90% of the game.
To be clear, no issue with the Furry Generator. Big issue with charging $60 for a Furry Generator with one Sonic level on it. With new metal soundtrack.
Yeah. But anyways, we can't talk about new Sonic without talking about the movies. Because this is the most modern Sonic we got. That they weren't actually that bad. I personally enjoyed them. Though they weren't really a Sonic movie. They were a Jim Carrey movie that was fun, and Sonic just happened to be there. So they can't make a good Sonic movie, but they can make a decent Jim Carrey movie.
Third one's gonna be so peak, dude.
The first Sonic movie was just a road trip movie. They could have replaced Sonic with Alex the Kid. The plot would have been the same.
Keanu Reeves' Shadow? Fuck yeah.
Why the fuck is Keanu Reeves Shadow?
It's gonna be so funny.
I'm seeing it day one when it comes out, and I'm going to be among the crowd that cheers when Maria gets shot.
See, I went to the Sonic Symphony. They had that, during the Shadow song, they had the animation of Maria. Everyone cheered so loudly. It was great.
I am going to go see Sonic 3 the day it comes out. But it's not because of Keanu Reeves or how much I want to see Maria get fucking got. It's because Sonic has made the grave mistake of having Knuckles be voiced by Idris Elba. And fuck, man, I don't like that I want to fuck Knuckles. That's weird.
All right, but...
Can you please... Thank you.
All right, so next, of course, came out with Sonic Frontiers, which is just their copy of Breath of the Wild. It took them 5 years, when it only took Genshin Impact 3 years to do it. But really, playing through it's just a cheap Breath of the Wild clone. Collectibles, puzzles spread out everywhere, and a leveling system for no goddamn reason based on the collectibles. Why was that needed? The final boss fight was a QuickTime event with 3 button presses. We know Sonic is supposed to have 1 button. Come on, guys.
It's the whole thing. It's this whole gimmick. They definitely didn't abandon it after the first game.
As much as Sonic's had quite a lot of ups and downs, the one thing that they have always been solid on is the music. They have really good music. All the way back, Sonic CD, they put out this fantastic anime intro with Sonic Boom, and that's still living rent-free in my head. And we all know Cityscape was, the most awesome music ever. So Sonic's just been doing great on music department. But what made it so good?
Spoilers. So we can't talk about Sonic music without talking about Crush 40, who I believe who have been doing music for Sonic the Hedgehog games since before Sonic games existed. They're just sitting in the... Huh?
At least 40 years.
Yeah, at least 40. We'll get there. But it's weird because, this band just oozes, Sonic inspiration. But the musical inspiration for Sonic wasn't, June with a guitar. It was Bill Clinton with a saxophone. Because they were like, yeah, let's give Sonic the Hedgehog the personality of Bill Clinton, something that definitely shouldn't come to bite him in the ass by now. So this is Jun Chino. He started at Sega in 1993 as lead composer for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, presumably after they got rid of, the bad guy. So it's good to know, at least he seems pretty cool. In addition to Sonic games, he worked on various racing games because, what other games do you make music for with that guitar? Make Harvest Moon? What the fuck would Rock and Roll Harvest Moon be like? It doesn't make sense. We're getting there.
They made a pretty good track for Big Cat.
Yeah, Big the Cat has a hardcore riff. The problem is after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, we didn't get any new Sonic games for a while. And Like, June's not going to just work on some shitty new IP like Nights into Dreams. And his music is nowhere near hardcore enough for Echo the Dolphin. So he decided to go on his very own mission. He was going to go to America and find the greatest vocalist ever so he could write the greatest song ever. But first, why Crush 40? Like, the name of a band is important. Be it nicknaming it after, like, a childhood nickname you got from a medical condition, to your favorite plant, to a book you saw on the floor of your room. They went with the AIM screen name approach based off of June's favorite soda, Crush, and vocalist Gianni Gioli's age, about 40. Like, the fuck? It's like, I don't know. This is just like an AIM screen name generator. Anyway, they weren't content, though, just writing Open Your Heart for Sonic Adventure and riding off into the sunset. So with the release of his Sonic Adventure 2, they came back to the franchise to release the greatest song ever written, Escape from the City.
Max?
What?
That's not actually Crush 40.
Wait, what do you
Tim
mean it's
Poley
not?
did the vocals.
So it's not canon?
No.
I mean, huh? I mean, I guess they're still live and learn. You're just sitting here. You guys are like all saying my jokes right before they happen. It's really upsetting. Do you want to talk about their song from Sonic Heroes? No?
Love it.
I love the placeholder version of it.
No one knows it. No one played Sonic Heroes. Stop lying to us. This is weird. We have one person who's a very vocal fan. We're just going to move on. Okay. So after that, Crush 40 decided to make a song that really came from the heart and connected to the big feelings teenagers were having. I'm fucking kidding. They wrote I Am All of Me for Shadow the Hedgehog. And yeah, no, fuck MCR. This is the real emo anthem of the mid-aughts. Why would you listen to anything else?
Why do you have Henry Kissinger on that panel?
Why not?
It's the Hedgehog.
He crushed 40.
Oh, yeah.
See?
Right, he's also dead.
Yeah, I know, it's fucking great. I love how dead he is. It's one of my favorite things. So, after that, they did keep writing music for Sonic games and whatever the fuck that is. But after Sonic Generations, they just kind of stepped away from the franchise for a while. But, you know, it was cool. In 2014, they did release a live album for my birthday. I didn't ask for that, but I appreciate it. They come back to Sega and like, hey, ready for the next Sonic game? And Sega's like, no, rejected 40. At this point, Sega decided they were going to switch to more of a villain of the week formula for who was doing the music for their games, which was normally fine until you hit Forces, where they had Hoobastank, and like, why are you bringing the new metal fandom into the Sonic fandom? That is like the second worst fandom.
All right, but Infinite goes hard.
I don't care.
All right.
It's
and,
new metal.
Speaking of the fandom, we should probably touch on it. As in, it's pretty toxic and problematic, as you know. And Sonic just kind of bleeds into everything. But yeah, he bleeds in everything. But as
Kirby's
much
not
as we'd
toxic.
love,
Kirby is wholesome.
as much as we'd love to end Sonic and just nuke him, then that fandom would escape and get out into all the other fandoms. And we saw the last time that happened. We don't want that to happen again, so Sonic has to kind of keep them quarantined. Even Sega would love to kill him, but they can't commit to it. So we're just going to keep getting Sonic for basically ever, or we're just going to get Shadow, because they seem to be really digging Shadow right now. Anyways, thanks for coming. We hope you enjoyed this panel. If you enjoyed any of this content, you should follow our socials, or just sit here as we do more panels.
Yeah, we're just going to keep paneling. We'll take some Sonic questions first.
Well, because it wasn't classic, and when it was modern, it wasn't modern enough for me to really pay attention to it. Also, I've only seen about half of it, so I don't.
It's the only game adaptation of Sonic Battle.
Well, true.
Andrew, do I have to replace you with her?
No.
It'll end up becoming a slideshow just about perfect chaos. Please don't.
Yeah, no, I won't. Here's the thing. First iteration of this panel, much less Sonic lore. He had to fix that for me.
Yeah.
I just spent way too much time on Tails Gets Trolled.
Oh no.
And turning Sega versus Nintendo into a Cold War.
Oh yeah. It was all a Cold War framing device, and I spent any time on Sonichu, which is too much time to spend on Sonichu.
Yeah, we've cut that.
No, I won't. The fact that people dress around as Christian Weston Chandler as cosplay is kind of fucking gross.